What is going on, YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the third album by Evanescence. Basically, this album is self-titled. It's called Evanescence, and it came out in the fall of 2011. So they had taken a 5-year gap between the Open Door from late 2006 and then Evanescence in the fall of 2011. And basically, Amy Lee had kind of needed to find more about herself. She kind of went through like an identity crisis and like after touring with the Open Door and stuff. So she was figuring out what she wanted to do and trying to figure out what direction to kind of take this album. That's kind of the concept. But this happened a lot. Like the next gap between this album and the album after that was actually pretty lengthy. And really, I feel like Synthesis is barely an Evanescence album. But they did drop Lost Whispers, which I reviewed in 2016. And then they dropped Synthesis in 2017, which is just kind of like an orchestral remix of an album. But it actually took them until like the spring of 2021 to really follow up this album. So that's kind of the concept. But I wanted to review this. This is pretty much a top-notch gothic metal album. There definitely needs to be more stuff like this. I feel like Evanescence definitely has like a vein and a valve for themselves that's just particularly pretty top notch. It just really has. They have a particular valve about them that's top notch. It's just original in that sort of context. Amy Lee kind of did this stuff. I mean, the only other folks I can really think that kind of did this sort of thing was just maybe. Well, there are other ones like New Year's Day kind of did this stuff. Avril Lavigne does it a little bit, but this is really like polished, complete gothic metal. But I noticed they don't have quite as many piano ballads this time. Like some of the stuff like that they did on Fallen, like I forget the name of some of the songs, but like there were some real kind of like My Immortal, and if you're looking for songs like My Immortal and some of those type songs off of Fallen and the Open Door and that type of stuff, it doesn't quite have as many like spooky kind of like real kind of October-esque kind of piano ballads like it did. That's one thing this album lacks, but it's not like this album's going to get a bad score. It just doesn't have like those kind of haunting, kind of somber, really kind of like uh like Twilight type songs and that type of stuff. I would definitely have to say it's a lot more metal of an album. This has a lot more symphonic metal and gothic metal about it. It's still very much a spook of an album. Definitely an album to listen to in October. Definitely an album to listen to in October and such, but it has like a different pitch and an angle that it tries this time as far as that kind of goes. But it is pretty good. The singles, like the problem with Evanescence, one of the few problems I have with them is just the fact that they just don't show up oftenly enough. So they really, just between the 20 years that they've been here, really only have like 4 true studio albums. There is Origin from the year 2000, which is a demo album, and there is Synthesis, but both of which are just kind of like patchy as far as being able to say like the true gesture. But there is more stuff. I'm going to get to reviewing more of these. I'll go ahead and talk about the singles. So the first single was What You Want. This is a pretty good highlight. This kind of takes it back to like the Fallen days where it just sounds a lot more new metal-esque. This is a very ground level and rave energy kind of night venue dance boiler. Definitely kind of has that kind of feel towards it. I mean, it's interesting that Evanescence this time kind of stepped out in like a nightclub and stuff. It's interesting that Evanescence kind of stepped out in like a nightclub and stuff. It's kind of a pitch that not every single band it's not a pitch that every single band kind of takes. It's kind of like I would have to say it's a pitch that not every single band seems to take, but I would have to say it's interesting just to kind of get it. The chorus is definitely pretty awesome on here. This is just a really good one. This has like a lot of real kind of metal-esque energy. It really feels similar to Bring Me to Life, and like this song feels really similar to Bring Me to Life and Going Under off of Fallen. This has that same kind of ground level pitch that just kind of feels like a regular kind of almost vanilla, but just kind of a relatively typical kind of night venue kind of cut on here. So it's just interesting kind of get some of these gothic metal tunes just for like a more spooky and kind of October-esque kind of stepping out type feel towards this. It's an overall nice one. I just appreciate the concept behind it. Amy Lee really tears this song apart. Just really is this kind of, I mean, it basically sounds like a 2011 version of the stuff that they did on Fallen. This has that same kind of pitch as far as that kind of goes. It's just a nice one. Great single, great chorus on here. Just has like this real kind of somber and haunting kind of feel towards it. It's just an overall nice one. Just a good rendition of what happened. The other 2 singles are kind of to varying degrees, but I do at least like them somewhat. My Heart is Broken is kind of an almost song, and this is the second single. And it's basically like a grim piano ballad. This is kind of similar to songs like My Immortal and some of those type ones. And Yeah, My Heart is Broken is similar to Hello and My Immortal from Fallen. Definitely kind of has like that piano type feel towards it. It's one of the few songs that kind of does this. It's definitely like a ballad. It's very makeshift. I like the concept of My Heart is Broken just because it's a more presentable, where I feel like What You Want is kind of more of like a nightclub and party kind of song. I feel like My Heart is Broken is definitely kind of a, in a more haunting sense, kind of a just got off work or just kind of in the process of just the day commute kind of feel towards it. But it's just very much, I would say, definitely black blue collar, if you could pick up on that. Just kind of, if you like blue collar music, but you do kind of have like some haunting feels about you and you're a lot more anguished and kind of more like just with like that kind of emo pitch as far as that personality kind of goes. It's just a good one for that sort of variation. It's just interesting because I want to say that Evanescence didn't really do this with their previous two albums. So they learned a new trick here where they kind of gave off some grim kind of makeshift music. And I like the pitch behind it. It is an almost song just because, well, I might even go as far as to say that I do like this song. I was just kind of on the fence about it, but the more I think about it, it is kind of like a clever type song. I just didn't quite, the production just didn't, the instrumentation just didn't quite wholesomely hook me in as much as I would have thought, but it is good enough to be able to say that it is a recommendable one. So it's kind of, I would have to say I'll decide as this review goes along as to whether or not I'm going to recommend it wholesomely, but it's just kind of one I'm in between about, but it's good enough. But the third single I didn't really enjoy that much, and that's Lost in Paradise. There are some kind of just a lot more morose and just kind of more grim sounding and just kind of overall just kind of a lot more down tempo and just, I mean, whereas My Heart is Broken is kind of like a piano ballad that just kind of has some makeshift pep towards it. I kind of feel like Lost in Paradise is just a complete, like, this real kind of sullen and just beside oneself in terms of like just emoting and like a sullen kind of way kind of aspect. So that's just one. I mean, I do like the concept. Normally, you know, Amy Lee and Evanescence are masters of some of these moody and kind of grim type tunes, but it just didn't catch me this time. I just kind of feel like I would have to say I like the concept, but maybe if it had been more of like a haunting kind of more piano ballad, but it just kind of came off as just a lot more, it just felt a lot more orchestral and just less arranged. The context of how the song was arranged was just not quite as compelling this time. So that's just kind of the thing about it. But to talk about some of these, there's 16 songs on the Spotify edition. There's 16 songs, whereas there's 12 songs plus the 4 songs on the deluxe edition. But the thing about it is, when I reviewed Lost Whispers back in April, I reviewed the 4 songs on the deluxe edition. So those 4 songs can be found. The 4 bonus songs on this album can be found on Lost Whispers. So I'm not gonna review it again. I'll just kind of say that just refer to the Lost Whispers album review I did to see what I thought of those 4 songs, which would basically be uh, A New Way to Bleed, Say You Will, Disappear, and Secret Door. So I talked about those songs before. It just is kind of so, but I am going to review these 12 songs. So out of these 12 songs, there were 8 songs I recommend plus 1 song I'm on the fence about. So those 8 songs would be What You Want, Made of Stone, Erase This, The Other Side, Never Go Back, The End of the Dream, Sick, and Oceans. And the almost song that I'm still deciding is My Heart is Broken. So to kind of talk about these, like I really liked Oceans. That's kind of another nightclub song similar to What You Want. Oceans is like a super nightclub song with some nice synths on there. It feels very comfortable, has comfortable vibes on here, and it's just a goth club song. Definitely like the pitch of that one. I feel like Sick is another nice one. This is kind of like a travel song. It's just a grim sounding travel song for getting errands done. So this is another pitch. I like some of these new tricks that Evanescence kind of displayed because they could have just done a bunch of metal kind of backyard party songs, but they tried some new angles as far as that kind of went. So this one's just kind of a getting errands done tune. It's kind of in a more shrill sense. It has that very kind of busy sounding energy about it. It's a lot more alternative metal and kind of moody and that sort of stuff. And I feel like The End of the Dream is a haunting power ballad. So this is another pitch. I don't remember too many power ballads that Evanescence kind of did. This is sort of stuff that like Metallica and AC/DC and like other folks like that will kind of do. This typical kind of bands like even Alice in Chains, some of those type folks. It's just very haunting, very sprawling kind of song, and this kind of has that ethereal feel. This kind of has that ethereal feel towards it. So I do like the fact that Evanescence attempted like a similarity to like a power ballad. It might just be more of like a haunting ballad, but I kind of saw it just in like the loominess of the feel of it kind of being like a power ballad. So it's just kind of like an October-esque power ballad. Ozzy Osbourne might have done some power ballads, definitely some arena type music. Never Go Back is a festive kind of social jam. This one definitely has some bubbling energy and it's just very crunk like. So I do like the concept of Evanescence having a little bit of jive this time where they kind of still are haunting and grim, but they just have a lot more motivational and just kind of pep towards them as far as wanting to step out a bit and just kind of be more lively. So I feel like songs like Oceans, What You Want, and like Never Go Back have that kind of feel towards it. And then also another one that kind of does that is The Other Side. This is a very vanilla rock bop just for nights out. The Other Side is just a vanilla rock song, which I don't talk about vanilla too much when it comes to rock music, but this is just kind of a vanilla rock bop. Just typical riffs on here, they're good, but it just kind of feels regular and typical for nights out. It's just a very calm, it's a calmer song, but it's effective at the same time. So this is just kind of an effortless kind of Evanescence song. Definitely like the concept. Made of Stone is very similar to What You Want. It's another kind of ground level spook like outdoor type backyard party tune. Definitely for some litty times. This feels like a goth party kind of tune. Definitely like some of that. I feel like What You Want and Made of Stone are a great 1-2 punch. And then Erase This is kind of an imperative, kind of alert kind of song. It has an alerted sounding beat, but it's very shrill. I like the concept of kind of getting some of this. This one just kind of has like a very kind of little bit more like preoccupied sense in terms of your mindset and that sort of altitude. I just kind of look at the concept of just maybe you got some stuff on your mind, maybe you got some errands to take care of, responsibilities to take care of, just a more kind of imperative kind of sounding type tune for that. Just definitely like, and it's kind of a piano, it's a very haunting type song. So it's a haunting kind of imperative song. I just like the concept of getting that sort of pitch. And for the most part, this album sticks with a pretty shrill kind of theme, but it's just interesting kind of get some of these new angles that just were not on Fallen and even The Open Door. So I feel like this is another angle. I feel like Erase This, The End of the Dream, Sick, and Oceans all tried some new things on here that just really had that particular pitch. That just kind of happens to be a thing. But basically, to talk about the basically only three songs I didn't enjoy, which was just Swimming Home, The Change, and then Swimming Home, The Change, and then Lost in Paradise, which I already talked about not liking Lost in Paradise, but Swimming Home is pretty similar to Lost in Paradise. That's just another kind of morose one and just kind of more down-tempo one that just was kind of more sluggish than I would have wanted. And then The Change was kind of like kind of another imperative sounding tune that just didn't quite pull it off as well. Just didn't quite. It was kind of a more mid-tempo version of Erase This. I feel like Erase This just kind of pulled it off better. I mean, these are both newer type songs that just had a different valve of stuff, but it just was not quite as effective in my mind. So that happens to be the concept there. So me liking basically, I would say I'm going to go ahead and give this album the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to go ahead and say that My Heart Is Broken is another effective single. So me liking 2 out of 3 of the singles and 9 out of 12 of the songs, which is basically 3/4 of the project. I'm going to give this album a 9.5 out of 10. I would give it a 10 if I would have liked all the singles, but this is just kind of such a subdued project in terms of like, I mean, for one thing, they took 5 years off and then they came back and they were gone pretty much as quickly as they came back. So really, the only real party song and nightclub song that you get, they just should have stuck around longer. But What You Want was kind of the briefest song because My Heart Is Broken just switched up the pace. And then Lost in Paradise was really like a sluggish and kind of morose tune. So they just did not really have like the pep and the kind of energy that they did back in 2003 and like 2006 even, which was just kind of a somber kind of haunting type one. But so I feel like it is good. I mean, I'm giving it a 9.5 out of 10. I definitely like this album quite a bit. It's filled full of things, has some nightclub gems on here, which is unlike them, has some different kind of pitches and just overall stuff that it does. And the gothic metal really suits and is effective this time. It's just the fact that the promotional is just so, just me knocking it a half point just because that's like the only thing. But I would say the social score, I'll go ahead and give the social score like The social score, I'll give a 9 out of 10, just because I feel like it does have two hit singles, but the problem with it is My Heart Is Broken is just not quite as connecting with like the audience. I feel like these album cuts are definitely state of the art and top notch. Plenty of good moments for stepping out and having a good weekend time. This is kind of like a secret, kind of closet weekend album in a lot of senses, but the singles just are not overwhelmingly so. Like what you want definitely is. And I suppose if you have some makeshift buddies and coworkers, My Heart Is Broken kind of fits the bill. But this is just not, in terms of the singles, really like much of a party album. So it's just kind of that context. But I give it a 9 because there's so many good album cuts and that type of stuff. So I almost gave it a 10, but I just feel like a 9 is suitable. In terms of the future, like Evanescence has been gone since the spring of 2021. So I do want to review some more of these. I'm probably going to either review Origins or Synthesis. We'll find out what happens. But definitely don't slack on picking up this project.